Hello there, a very warm welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're watching Smart 24 TV and we drive your business. Remember, it's a Friday, of course, we're winding up the markets, and I'm here to give you a snapshot into what the week was like for the trades here in Uganda on the East African platform as well as on the global markets. My name is Anthony Sebale and I am your host. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Smart24TV and as well at Anthony Sebale. Now, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa. Remember to check out Altex in their new initiative called Zabu. With Zabu, we are bringing treasury bonds to your sitting room by now, of course, getting to make them accessible via your mobile money. You can be able to access these by simply dialing *292# with Altex, and you can be able to register. You can learn more about the products, and you can get to invest with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings in the treasury bonds here in East Africa. Remember, we have different maturities depending on the favorite maturity period for our investor. You can be able to select that, of course, given the prompts you'll be following. And with Altex, remember, we say you can do something new because no one has done this in the market. And the markets are always open every single weekday from 8:15 to 3 p.m. Altex East Africa, do something new. Now, of course, let's get to dive into the business of the stock exchange here in Uganda and have a look at what the Uganda Securities Exchange had on the 4th day of trading. Remember, today is the last day of trading this week, and the markets are open already. They do open at 9 a.m. and close at 1 p.m. East African Standard Time. That's for our traders here in Uganda, but as well, we share a common market trading time with Nairobi, with Tanzania, and we are 1 hour a little bit ahead of Rwanda, but still we trade within the same time frame. Remember, we have a goal and the dream of having the East African capital markets become one, and this is going to only come true if you only prove that we can make it back here at home. So get enthusiastic in our stock exchange, get to buy some shares every time you can, because this is the best way you can support the capital markets here in Uganda, but also in East Africa, and that will actually get to accelerate the fusion of these markets and make it easier for you to buy or sell different securities across East Africa. Now, on the Uganda Stock Exchange, things didn't seem so well for the all-share index as it dropped off over 9.3 points on the 4th day of trading. Now, this was following a day where only 2 securities, rather listings on the exchange, were able to participate in the trading. And based on the data here, I have Equity Group Holdings coming at the top of the table. Now, the market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange was maintained at 20.8 trillion Ugandan shillings. Now, at the moment, when you look into the Uganda Stock Exchange trading, there's been a little decline in the number of participants in the trading. However, Umeme did have a very huge volume. That, of course, had a very good influence on our turnover as well for the day. Now, as per the data here, we have 1.056 million shares that were traded on Umeme, still coming out the biggest volume and the biggest turnover on the market for Thursday. And as well, we do have the MTN stock at exactly 1,700 shares that were recorded for the 4th day of trading here on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, the biggest gainers, of course, including Equity Group Holdings, were also mainly cross listings. Definitely, these were not participants in the trading. The factors are very clear here. The exchange rate and other factors outside the demand and supply of stock influenced these movements. Equity Group Holdings, which led the gainers, currently closed their day of trading at 1,321.88 Ugandan shillings. And Centum Investments Company had about a 2.14% decline in price, up to about a tune of 256 Ugandan shillings. Jubilee Holdings Limited stock also traded at a 1.39% lower price at the end of the day, with a closing price of 5,305.11 Ugandan shillings. And Jubilee Holdings stock currently is one of those stocks that have lost quite a lot of value since the year began. From around 6,000 Ugandan shillings down to 5,000, quite a significant value to lose in just a month into the new year. But still looking at the losers here, we had Nation Media Group come at the bottom with a 1.25% decline down to 426.46 Ugandan shillings. And KCB Group had a loss of 0.58% down to 1,128.44. And Kenya Airways also lost 0.58% down to 112.26 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, at the moment, looking critically into the lines of trading across the Ugandan market, we did not have any gainers on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and that was a very disappointing move there that led to a drop of over 9.3 points of the all share index on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, as per the participants, we had Umeme, like I mentioned, the biggest volume of over 1,056,000 shares that were recorded on the stock exchange. At the moment, Umeme currently enjoys a total market capitalization of over 487 billion Ugandan shillings, currently the 8th most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, the company, of course, got a lot of attention during the month of December when it released a public notice that it will be exiting Uganda in 2025 after the concession period there is going to be getting expired. Remember, the company came into Uganda as a distributor and supplier of electricity in Uganda, and that was taking over from Uganda Electricity Board, and that was under a 20-year concession that began way back in 2005. That will be expiring in 2025, and it's very clear now that Umeme will not be renewing that particular agreement, and that means they are going to delist as well, because you cannot have a listing that is no longer operational, or the business that's no longer running and it's listed still on the Uganda Stock Exchange. That is apparently not possible under the listing rules of the Uganda Securities Exchange. However, despite what we would expect, probably people buying out of that stock, getting to sell and getting to run away and get to buy other stocks, on the contrary, investors have created more interest on the stock exchange for Umeme stock. The stock has witnessed a rise in price in the last 4 weeks of 7.14%, and in 3 months, 50%. Exactly 3 months back, Umeme stock was trading at 150.0 Ugandan shillings. Today at 300 shillings, it means investors have appreciated at least 50% in the last 3 months in terms of what they hold as value. To put this into perspective, you can have 100 million invested. If you had 100 million shares bought 3 months ago in Umeme, today you have 200 million worth of shares, the same amount of shares, but worth more, 50% fold on the Uganda Securities Exchange. That is also still the same story in the 6 months performance at 50% gain, and in a year-on-year performance, exactly looking back 1 year ago, they are counting a 58.7% year-on-year gain. That's how serious the gains are at the Umeme stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. On the year to date, the shorter term, because of course we've just spent about a month, a few days into the new year, we are seeing a 9.09% gain currently on the Uganda Stock Exchange over the Umeme stock. So there are gains all over the place, and currently the price seems to have become a little bit stagnant owing to the fact that the supply is now limited. Remember, stocks are driven by supply and demand. Basically, if a stock is highly on demand, definitely we have to put a pressure on its supply, and that definitely comes to curtail the supply, because as demand increases, you understand that the quantity of the goods supplied comes down. That's according to, of course, the economics, the basic economics. So the same thing is playing out here. The demand is quite high. Many people are interested into coming into the stock market at Umeme stocks, but the supply is quite limited. That's what makes the stock so valuable at Uganda Umeme company here. Now, the company here currently on their monthly performance is quite optimistic for investors at 7% gain, like I mentioned. But also in terms of volume, they have quite something to record. In the second position, in terms of value, the most traded on stocks on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the last 3 months. The company has on its back about 26 million shares in this period of 3 months, valued at a 6.52 billion Ugandan shillings turnover. Now, that is the biggest turnover on the market so far at the moment at Umeme Limited. Now, when you compare this with Umeme listing on Nairobi Securities Exchange, you can tell it's almost a similar story with Umeme on the Nairobi Stock Exchange as well. Looking at their stock here in Nairobi, there's been a lot of interest as well from the traders on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Currently, just yesterday, the company's stock actually went down slightly by 0.06 points to a price of 9.74 Kenyan shillings at a 0.61% depreciation. But currently, Umeme is still in the 15th position in terms of the most valuable stocks at a 15.8 billion shillings, Kenyan shillings market capitalization, with about 0.79% of the entire Uganda Nairobi Securities Exchange. Rather, on the fourth day of trading, they had 1,200 shares valued at 11,680 Kenyan shillings that were recorded on this particular day of trading. Now, why I said, of course, this is a daily loss. If you can look at the daily loss, the daily performance of the stock, but getting to look at the short and medium and long term rather, the company is doing quite well. NSE, when you look at the rankings of the year-to-date, the monthly performance, in year-to-date performance on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the Umeme stock has gained about 31.3% on their price valuation, which is the second best on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Currently, this also is on top of the 20% gain over the last 4 weeks on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So you can see even in the shorter term, Umeme is doing way better on Nairobi Stock Exchange, better than in the long term, right? That means a lot, of course, for the shareholders as well. Umeme in Nairobi is the 29th most traded on stock as well in the last 3 months. That is speaking way back from the 9th of November to the 9th of February 2023. Umeme in this period has had about a total of 1.29 million shares in 418 deals, with an average of about 20,470 deals, traded shares per session. This is still amongst the top performances from Umeme, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange listing. So whether you are a trader on the Nairobi Securities Exchange or a trader on the Uganda Securities Exchange, Umeme seems to be giving a lot of hope here for the different shareholders, in particular here on the Nairobi and Uganda Securities Exchange. Away from Nairobi, MTN Uganda was also a mover on the Thursday trading, with a total of just about 1,700 shares that were traded on the fourth day trading. MTN currently is in the third most valuable, amongst the third most valuable stocks on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with a total close to 4.03 trillion Ugandan shillings market capitalization. Now, currently that represents about close to 19.4%, a little bit less than a quarter of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange. And at the moment, MTN has a total price of 180.0 Ugandan shillings per share that is currently being traded on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Looking at their turnover here, they accrued about just 300,000 Ugandan shillings. And when you look at the market capitalization, it's at 4.03 trillion Ugandan shillings. And MTN Uganda is still now in the third most traded on stock, in the third position amongst the most traded on stocks on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the past 3 months or so as well. In this period, they have had about 23 million shares valued at 4.15 billion. So it comes after, in terms of turnover, it comes after Umeme in the second position, but in terms of trading, it comes in the third place. Now, why are these two very important? Yes, much as we could have a stock really coming out to trade big volumes, but by how much? How much are you gaining? How much are you adding value? How much value are you adding to the shareholders? Because MTN matters, we have all these big volumes and the big turnover. The price has been static, which is not bad, but also not good. It's not where we would want to be as shareholders, as investors. You're looking for a stock that can add value. I would rather have a stock that actually takes away a little bit of value for some time and then returns with even much more value later on. That is the thing with especially the growth enterprise segment stocks. Those are stocks of smaller companies. They do have volatile prices because their prices go up and down anyhow on the stock market, but they do offer gains at a certain point in time, because at some point you're going to be up there, at some point you're going to be down here. And when you're down here, you're buying more and more. And when you get up there, you start to get sell off a little bit more. But unfortunately, of course, these haven't grown to become very active stocks as well on the market. And there's still a little bit slow activity in terms of what can be done on these particular stocks on the exchange. However, we keep optimistic highly that Umeme this year will still issue a dividend. Of course, that's another way shareholders benefit directly from being investors in particular companies on the stock exchange. Last year, it was their first year on the exchange and they issued a dividend, which was a very good sign from the company. So we definitely hope this year it will even be better for the company that has seen probably a very good 2022 as well. Away from MTN Uganda stocks, currently looking at the local company index, they have maintained their value at 274.1 points because in a while we haven't had any changes in price, especially on the domestic stocks. The last change we had was on Stanbic Bank, where Stanbic Bank stock price went up a little bit by 2 shillings from 21 to 23, and then still came back down at 21. And so everything seems to be in normal or standard run on the Uganda Stock Exchange in terms of the domestic stocks. But the cross listings, of course, continue to be a little bit more volatile, but with less activity. So there's nothing influencing the local company index. However, still, the local company index has a gain of 0.44% on their year-to-date, on their weekly gain, and the year-to-date gain of about 0.52% on the exchange. And that's, my friend, the trading from the Uganda Stock Exchange. Remember to check out Alltex East Africa and not forget to, of course, dial *292#. With Alltex, we are saying you can do something new. Yes, regardless of where you are, what you're doing, how much money you have, with as little as 15,000 shillings. We are saying you can get your journey started of investment. Why not at the hand of your mobile phone? You can just have your mobile phone there and get to your mobile wallet and get a little bit of money and invest in that treasury bond. It could turn out to be very, very useful for you in the future. Now, Altex markets open at 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and they close at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. And Altex is regulated by the Uganda Capital Markets Authority there. So you don't want to miss out on some of those big gains there. Altex East Africa is saying you can do something new. Now, of course, allow me to cross over into Nairobi and get to have a detailed look a little bit into what the fourth day of trading was like on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, getting generally to look at the exchange in Nairobi over the past 1 week, because we are winding up the week, of course, it's important to look back in the weekly performance of the stock. When you look at the all-share index, the all-share index has been a little bit stable and had a few gains here and there during the week and ended Thursday with a gain of 0.36 points on the all-share index, which is the benchmark of the 65 equities that are listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, currently, the exchange all-share index is counting close to about 128.62 points. That's exactly what it looks like on this fourth day of trading. As per the trading on Thursday specifically, we had 43 equities participating in trade, and the day ended with 13 gainers and 17 losers on the market. At the moment, car and general returned as the biggest gainer for the day, with a total of close to about 5.88% gain in price, up to a price of close to about 36.0 Kenyan shillings per share. At the moment as well, Nation Media Group appreciated 3.01%, and TransCentury had about 1.77% as well. And Equity Group Holdings continue to rally the market at a 1.67% gain. Those were the big gainers amongst the 13 gainers for the day. At the losing side, we had 17 equities down, and these were at the bottom, having Home Africa Property Developer there, which was the biggest gainer on Wednesday. That's exactly what I was saying about small stocks. Volatility is quite high. Today, they're on the top. Tomorrow, they're at the bottom. Of course, that provides its own advantages and disadvantages. You want to buy when they're going low, but you want to buy when they're going low consistently. You don't want to have a one-hit wonder and then you buy and then they go up, and then before you even sell, they're down again. So they require a little bit of patience when it comes to investing in these small cap stocks, especially on busy stock exchanges like Nairobi. Now, at the moment, Home Africa trades at 0.31 Kenyan shillings per share. You see, very affordable stock, but very volatile. That's the game. That's how it runs on the exchange at an 8.82% gain, rather loss on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. East African Cables, unfortunately, as well lost 6% of its value, and the NSE, remember, Nairobi Securities Exchange is a demutualized stock exchange and is listed on its own stock exchange. So it lost as well a value of 2.9%, and Total Kenya also lost a 2% value of their price on the fourth day of trading. Safaricom had the biggest volume traded at 1.11 million shares that were traded on the market, and the Cooperative Bank of Kenya at 776,000 shares, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company at 318,300 shares. Well, that of course shows that there was a decline in the volume, with Safaricom coming in with just about 1 million shares. That's a quite small volume for a stock like Safaricom on a single day. So this particularly had an 8% overall decline in the volumes as well, significantly to note there for the shareholders. Now, the benchmark performance as well for the all-share index also, we have mentioned, declined slightly, but other remarkable indices like the NSE 20 lost 0.16%, and the NSE 25 gained 0.34%. Now, what does that mean for you, a shareholder? In Kenya, we do have exchange traded funds, and whenever you have these gains, especially on these other indices, you need to check out some of their exchange traded funds, because these exchange traded funds, they track a particular segment of the stock exchange. So you could find that the NSE 25, tracking the top 25 companies, has an exchange traded fund. And if it's gaining on a single day, it means you can invest. If you invested in those companies at once, you're probably going to be on a gaining side. And it's important as well to track the aggregate performance over a longer time when you look at especially the NSE trading, the NSE trading that happens every day. So you as a shareholder, you have a mandate to actually check out what the indices are doing. They tell you a lot about the sectors, about where you should put more money this time around and where you shouldn't. All right. I hope that is noted. That's it from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. In total, we had just about 4.4 million shares valued at 130 million Kenyan shillings trading on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, ending the day with a 2 trillion market capitalization on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And that's the trading, my friend, from the African continent. On the US market, very briefly, the US stock figures moved higher ahead of open Thursday, boosted by the mega cap tech stocks, pointing to a possible turnaround for the indexes. Now, the futures tied to the S&P 500, which is the Standard & Poor's, added 0.7%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average also climbed 0.6%, while the Nasdaq Tech Heavy Index also rose by 1.1%. On the other hand, the yield on the benchmark 10-year US Treasury note ticked down by 3.59%. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And definitely, as we get into the weekend, I wish you a very happy weekend and enjoy responsibly. But remember to check out Altex East Africa before you end today, because today is the last day we are open until next Monday. And now you can do that by simply dialing *292# on your phone and get to transact money off your mobile money wallet onto the exchange and be able to buy yourself some of the latest and most appetizing treasury bonds on the market. You can also learn more about the products via the same USSD code. Markets at Altex East Africa open at exactly 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and close at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. Remember, investment starts with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings, and you can go on and on. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very happy weekend. Bye for now. See you later.